Let's just do a sound check.
Testing. Can you guys hear me?
All right, we're good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
We're good to go.
Sorry for the delays, everybody. So, as with all Windows, if you don't restart your computer every 30 seconds, you get a billion things you have to do when you do restart it, and you have to do them, and anyway, it's a pain in the ass. So, welcome everybody to CanHammer TV. It is May 26th. We are in week 9 or 10 of isolation. Before we start, and I introduce my guests, big shout out to the losers at Trinity Bellwoods Park in Toronto for extending our quarantine probably another few months, all for the sake of one weekend of sunny weather. Big shout out to those people. You're my heroes. You really are my heroes. And in case you were so heroic you didn't notice, and being completely sarcastic, because you are all idiots. Anyway.
Hey, if it makes you feel any better, here in Chicago, we're closed until August.
Okay. That's pretty bad. But
yeah,
in effect, we will now also be closed till August because these people were being stupid. Anyway. Yeah. Chris, of course, you might know he's been on before. Random Scrub number 2 on the Custodes Discord, coming to join me tonight. So actually, funny story, we were supposed to talk about Inquisitors tonight, but in fact, we're going to talk all about 9th edition stuff because the hype train is real. We're on this train now, and we cannot do a show and not talk about it. And so we're going to completely speculate wildly tonight and probably wish list a lot and talk a lot about stuff we know nothing about, but we're going to do it anyway because we can't talk about anything else right now. We will try and do the Inquisitor episode next week, unless of course some other crazy hype train comes along, like maybe leaks from our new book, and then we might have to derail that too. And in some ways, who cares about Inquisitors right now, because maybe in as little as 4 to 6 weeks we're going to have a new book and a new edition, so who knows. NH5357, welcome. Phase 3 starts on Monday in Chicago. What does that mean? What's Phase 3?
Phase 3 means that they're going to allow some outdoor restaurants and some gyms to reopen.
Okay.
But I don't see that lasting very long at all.
We're in that phase right now, which we call Phase 2, so we must have skipped a phase at some point. And those people in the park skipped all the phases and went straight back to ridiculous large gatherings. But I think, it's hard to know what's going to happen, but I think those people in the park were being stupid. It feels a shame to, if we get a second wave. It's not even second wave because, to be honest, we're still on the first wave. If it starts skyrocketing again, then it's we just wasted, the last 2 months for, nothing. We might as well just kept going.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. So how you doing, Chris?
I'm okay. Yeah. I finished painting my pile of shame.
Like Custodes pile of shame or just general pile of shame?
My general pile of shame. The only things I have left are my 100 orc boys that I'm not looking forward to painting.
100 orc boys. That's just spray and pray, man.
Yep.
Well, I have just still been painting Eldar jet bikes, so I don't know if that's shameful or not. I've literally spent 2 months on these guys and trying to be really good about it. And I've redone these stupid white helmets 3 times. And still not super happy with them, but I might just have to move on for my own sanity. So anyway, that's all that I've been up to hobby-wise. I don't have any Custodes to paint, luckily. Actually, I have three Alars Terminus to paint, but I just can't do it right now.
Oh, I still have I still have Valerian and Alea to paint.
Oh yeah, I got those 2 dudes to paint too.
Yeah, but I'm never using those.
Yeah, unless something ridiculously cool happens to them with our book, they might not ever get painted. Cause I don't know. But anyway, so in case you live under a Warhammer 40k rock, the big reveal of the weekend was, of course, 9th edition coming out. we're going to call it 9th for now. It basically is just like a giant chapter approved, actually. Cleaning up a bunch of rules, adding in like beta rules, and like going over points, and just changing a bunch of things. They haven't changed any of the real core mechanics or turn structures or anything of the game. So you could argue it's not like a big 9th ed, it's more like a big chapter approved on 8th ed. But whatever you want to call it, we're going to call it 9th ed because that's what everyone else is calling it. And so they spoiled it in this trailer. What did you think of that trailer, Chris?
I thought it was pretty cool.
It's pretty good.
It's a cool trailer, but
how does it compare to the trailer? I think it was for Dawn of War 2, where there's like the knight that like charges forward and skewers the Wraith Knight on his like giant Reaper chainsword. It was that Dawn of War 2? I can't remember, but that was a pretty epic cinematic too.
I think that was Dawn of War 2.
Yeah, which one do you like better?
I actually really like this one because it was interesting seeing like Imperial Guardsmen fighting like Necrons and then like Scissors of Battle coming out of nowhere, and then like the Angels stop by. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and obviously this trailer was full of previews. So you had the new Primaris, whatever they're called, with the giant storm shields, and apparently we now know extra strong chainswords, which is just something that Marines needed. And with the dude with like the skeleton hanging from the shoulder, and then the assault Primaris Marines, which we now know are coming, actually, because it just occurred to me when I watched that video that we don't have assault Primaris Marines, we just have normal old school assault Marines, which nobody ever uses. That's probably why people have forgotten about them. And then of course,
I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah, like I totally forgot. Oh, we don't have assault Marines. And then of course we have all the Necron stuff. So new warriors. What do you think of the new warriors?
I think they look silly. Like I just can't get over the faces they have.
They look a bit. The faces look kind of cartoony.
Yeah. I can't get over that. But
I think do you think they should have made them more like kind of like Terminator skulls, like that kind of thing? Hard to know. I'd have to see it.
I thought they should have gone more Egyptian with the faces.
I think they're trying not to go so Egyptian because they don't want it to be like Tomb Kings, Thousand Sons.
But that's what they are,
the
though.
Egyptian
Like
thing.
that's like what they are.
Yeah, I know that's what they are, but they don't want to make it seem too obvious. Like, there's the obvious comparisons to the Bone Reapers, but, people should remember, like, the Necrons came first. So, anyway, I guess there's only so much you can do with skeletal, like, robot aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like the Warriors at first, either. I like that they're bigger, and I like that they got rid of that stupid green little plastic rod that you had to put in all the guns. But yeah, I didn't like the face. You're right. And then they revealed this Scorpec or whatever, like the big, like little walker dude. I guess he's about the size of a dreadnought or something like that. It's hard to tell.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like an even bigger dude who has yet to be revealed. Then they posted this picture of, like the armies clashing on the tabletop, and you can see the one dude who looks like really like tall walker with like a bulbous head.
Oh yeah, it's like World of Worlds.
Yeah. Or like what's it called? Clone Wars. The cartoon Clone Wars. Like those guys have the big tall walker dudes with like the lasers on the top. And then they have like a guy who looks like a Satan, but he's kind of surrounded by like all this like lightning and shit. And then of course the Silent King model, which looks pretty cool, is like it kind of reminds me of the dude from Bone Reapers who's like standing with like on this big base with like a bunch of dudes around him. So I wonder if it's going to be kind of rules similar to that. But yeah, that's coming, the Silent King. So yeah, lots of excitement for Necron players. Of course, their rules have to be good, but it's always nice.
Are there Necron players?
There are Necron players. My friend Phil is even thinking. Phil the man, thinking of coming back to 40K. Super stoked for all these new Necron models, and not having to necessarily rebase all of his old warriors. So we'll see. Yeah, NH 5357, this Silent King looks like it comes with like two kind of pylons, which maybe are like some kind of shield or something. He has like a helper over here, and he has like some kind of like half like behead, like half Satan guy behind him who looks like he's in pain. It's kind of cool. Okay. And then they spoiled the new bikes, Marine Bikers, Primaris Bikers. What do you think of those bikes?
Honestly, I just think they're gonna be like Primaris bikes, like just like regular Marines, but or rather regular Primaris Marines on bikes.
Yeah.
I don't imagine them being too good.
Well, we'll see. So, like, if they're gonna be T5. They're gonna have 3 wounds because bikes add a toughness and a wound. They're gonna be 3-up save. Whatever invuln that what depends on what they play. They're probably gonna have at least 4 shots from that bolter, which under circumstances will be -1, and they're probably going to have some kind of pistol and a super chainsword, which we don't know yet. So they could be pretty good. They're obviously going to move at least 14 inches. And with the new terrain rules that we're going to talk about soon, who knows if they'll be easier to use than bikes right now, because bikes right now are kind of screwed by the terrain rules.
Yeah, that's a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
Like the new terrain rules.
Yeah. So we're going to do our wild speculation in a second, but how much longer do you think we're going to have the small Marines? So somebody asked that on the Q&A. And so Stu Black says, you're going to be able to use your small Marines because he has a bunch of small Marines, blah, blah, blah. But I almost feel like they missed the opportunity to legend the 25mm Marine with this edition, like right at the beginning. Because now they got
Marines.
Yeah,
I mean, they could still
Primaris.
do that. They could still end up doing that. Like once the book comes out.
Yeah, they got it at some point. They can't just let people keep playing these crappy little Marines, right? Like now that you have Assault Primaris, you have Bikers. Yeah, Scouts were replaced by whatever Incursors or whatever. Like basically all the old small Marines have now been replaced. So at some point that stuff's just gonna get axed. Bruce Gordon, welcome. How's it going? Devil of Blood Streaked Wings. That's quite the Twitch handle. Welcome.
He's right.
What's he saying? They say legends. Yeah. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, legend would be an ongoing process, so they might.
That's right. Okay, so what we're going to talk about tonight is actually the Q&A session from today. And because the Q&A incorporates basically the other thing that I originally wanted to talk about, which was like the 9 new things of the new edition, the Q&A incorporates all of those things. So what we're going to do is go through the various questions that were asked on the Q&A and talk around them. And what we're focused on tonight, of course, because this is still Custodes Tactica, we're going to really talk about how these things might impact us in our army. Join us tomorrow night when the podcast returns. Me and Chris are going to talk about everything else to do with the 9th edition stuff and how we feel all the other factions and things. And so more general, tonight we're going to try and stay more focused towards Custodes if we can. It's a big hype train and we may get off track, but we'll try and keep us on track. Yeah. So you ready for this, Chris?
Yes.
Are you on this hype train? I wanted to get
I don't know. I've been burned too many times.
Chris is jaded.
Yeah, after Valerian's release, I just couldn't anymore.
Well, there is hope. There is
but
hope.
I am excited.
Yeah.
Even if we don't end up getting everything that I would hope we get, at least we're getting something.
Yeah. So some of the Mech Rules were leaked today, and some of them are pretty good, like toughness-wise. So there's one that reduces strength by 1. That's not quite as good as -1 to wound, but it's still okay. There's one that reduces damage. There's one that shuts off auras. Like, they got a lot of cool stuff. So I'm like, every time in Harlequins, obviously super small faction, they got a lot of really good stuff. Deathwatch, got okay stuff. So I'm encouraged. The more time goes on, I'm getting more hype. I try not to be too hype because, you don't want to be too high before you come back down. But, yeah. So, okay. So let's go through this and we'll just talk through some of these talking points. So the first question asked was, Horde Armies, they asked about, there was a whole bunch of Tyrannid questions for some reason, and they decided to answer them, but actually they redirected it to more general features of Ninth. So really, in this question, what's to help Horde Armies? And so Pete Foley redirected it to say what's really to help Assault Armies, which probably applies to us. And so he named a few things that would help. He mainly talked about terrain, and that there will be more line of sight. Some of the terrain will be literally just line of sight blocking, this rule that he called obscured or obscuring. And so it seems like what they're doing is making terrain have rules, regardless of what the terrain looks like. Kind of like they do in AOS. Like you roll the dice before in AOS and you put a little tokens there. This terrain has this rule. So interesting to see how they do that. So like this ruin is obscuring. Therefore, if you're behind it, you are blocked. Regardless of your antenna sticking up, or I can see through the second floor window. I can just see one dude's hand sticking out the side, therefore I can shoot the whole unit. I think that's what they're trying to get rid of, is that kind of thing. So that you have more line of sight blocking when your terrain is supposed to be line of sight blocking. And then you don't need house rules that say first floor is blocking, second floor is blocking, all these kind of silly things. So what do you think about that? Do you think that's a good change?
I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to see like how the rule, like what the rules are themselves. Because in AOS, at least at the local tournaments that I've been to, all the terrain already has like preset rules onto them. Like this is arcane terrain. It's like +1 to casting or whatever. And even like random games, like we don't even bother with those rules because it's just too much to remember.
Yeah, that's the problem with the AOS terrain rules, right? It's too much. You forget to put the things, or you don't bother with them. But actually, if you use it, it adds a little bit to the game.
AOS, but I mean that's a whole different system. Like,
yeah.
But it would really depend on what they have in mind when they implement the rules.
Yeah. We're going to talk a bit more about terrain later on because they come back to talk about it. But it's Pete's impression that, with this terrain, assault armies are going to be able to get up there easier without being shot through, as he said, a third floor window or something like that. So we'll see.
Even that is somewhat limited to the terrain you have at your local store, or if you play at home, like what terrain you own.
Yeah, but it might just basically get rid of true line of sight, right? So if most of your bikes are behind this ruin, you cannot shoot my lances, right? Like it might get rid of that kind of situation. Actually, somebody just asked for it there right now. But and he actually pointed out specifically like a Carnifex being his claw sticking out through a window and he gets shot, right? He specifically mentioned that situation because it was a Tyranid question. So we'll see. Of course, this is complete speculation, as we said. So nobody should shoot us down for anything.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that that terrain rules actually get good now, instead of being like 40 pages at the back of the core rulebook that no one even looks at.
Yeah. I think it's really obvious to them that the rules really needed redoing and maybe making slightly more complex than they are now. It's gone too far to the simplified. I mean, in 7th it was really crazy, and then now it's like way too simplified, and there was a lot of gamey side issues to do with terrain, so I think they really wanted to make this edition where they put the terrain back. And then Stu chimed in again about assault armies, that Overwatch has been changed. No details on that. And so, you make it all the way across the table and you don't get shot to hell. Obviously, they weren't talking about Tau specifically, but what do you think they could do to Overwatch to change it? I mean, most of the time, Overwatch is not particularly damaging, right? But it does feel bad to lose a model or something, right?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure for Overwatch. 'Cause that's a big change. It's a really big change. Since 40K is a shooting game. I don't know about that one.
Controversial opinion coming up. I think they should just get rid of Overwatch.
Really? Why?
But it most of the time does nothing anyway. Slows the game down, and it's like, why do I get punished again for trying to get into combat, right? Like, why do you get to shoot me again, right? And then you have pistols, and it's like too much. And I personally feel like they should get rid of Overwatch. But maybe it's going to be something more subtle, like no rerolls in Overwatch, or I don't know, something probably just to tone it down a little bit. So we'll see. They didn't tell us anything else about it. They just said it's been changed a little bit. And he also said that there are now, quote, core stratagems, so stratagems that everybody has access to, that will change the way falling back works. Because, again, you get all the way over there, you don't kill the person, they just fall back, and then you get shot. And unless you do shenanigans with wrapping and then you still end up getting shot. So it'll be interesting. I was thinking about that. How can you change falling back? You need to penalize it a little bit, right? And I know there's kind of a penalty because when you fall back, you can't shoot, but a lot of people still can. Fly still can. Like, a lot of people have those kind of things. So, or maybe you get to attack when they fall back, or like, there's a lot of things they could do with that. What do you think? What do you think you would like to see changed about falling back?
I would like to see, like, each model within range can make one attack as a like as they fall back. Like, that's what I would like to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So some kind of punishment for being cowardly, basically.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense that. Well, I say it doesn't make sense even though it's a game. I don't know. I think falling back is an unfun mechanic.
Okay. The in terms of Custodes, like, obviously if terrain gives us a better, easier to hide, then that's going to benefit us. If it allows us to get into combat easier, it'll benefit us. And obviously if there's less Overwatch on us, that will benefit us. And if people have a much harder time, or we get to attack them again when they fall back, like, all these things are good changes for assault armies in general, so they generally apply as good things to us as well. So I think these are encouraging changes for us as a whole. Okay, next question was, are the turn mechanics changing? No. That really points to that some people thought that they were going to go to alternating activations, like in Apocalypse and like in AOS and things like that, but they've confirmed that that's probably not going to happen. Okay, reserves. So there's big changes to reserves that basically in the preview last week on the weekend, they said that more things are going to be able to be reserved, and that you just spend CP to do it. And that things will be able to come in differently. Rather than just deep striking, they may be able to outflank or come in off your opponent's backfield. Kind of like 7th. We're coming back to like outflanking and infiltrating and all these kind of things. These terms that we still use in 8th, even though they don't exist in 8th. That were all from 7th edition or before that. So what do you think about that? So what do you think about, for us, if we can just deep strike more units just by spending CP? And we'll get to CP, obviously, in a second. And what do you think about the flexibility of bringing it in, not necessarily, like from the edges, or what do you think of that?
So I'm not too sure how that's going to pan out, at least for Custodes. Like, anything that we want to put in reserves is mainly going to be our hammer units anyway. Or if we want to put something like Caladius tank and, like not on the board on turn 1. I don't see that being too useful outside of like very niche like matchups.
Yeah, I think generally because we are one of the many factions who already can deep strike stuff, and we have Terminators that can already deep strike. So I'm not sure if you're gonna end up like null deploying your army. Like, I don't think that would be the case, especially if you can hide. Deep striking like a tank or something while cool may help you, but I wonder if they'll change like the turn 1 restriction. Who knows? Who knows? Outflanking something while you could be useful. Depends again, like it's very situational. But more flexibility gives you more choices, so I guess it's good for everybody, and I guess it could be good for us too. But we already have ways of deep striking people, so we'll see what the changes end up being. But certainly there are some armies that are really loving these changes back to the old days.
Yeah.
I bet you like Genestealer Cult's going to be able to come in from like everywhere. Like, and that would be very cool, right? Like, you just don't know where they're going to come from. They can literally come from anywhere. I wonder if they're going to change the 9-inch thing. Do you think they're going to change the 9-inch thing?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No. Otherwise, people would just be spamming like blood letters. And then like it'd just be chaos versus chaos. And...
Maybe.
Yeah.
There could be worse things than blood letters, though, I guess.
Blood letters. People are still scared of that 8-inch charge.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing, they went back to terrain. And so they clarified that they're trying to make the terrain more, quote, fun and more useful other than line of sight blocking. So I think we may be seeing indication like other rules like they have in AOS. So this piece of terrain gives you, whatever. I don't know. They wanted to give the different pieces of terrain features so that if this was a swamp, you knew this is a swamp, and this is a crater, and this is a forest. And so to some extent they already have that, but actually some of the rules either just don't get played or they're kind of samey, so -2 to charge, that sort of thing. They wanted to give it more complexity because they needed to give it complexity to stop some of the abuse, but they also wanted to clarify it and keep it simple and clean. So that's interesting how they're going to accomplish these somewhat contradicting goals. And so they talked about the obscuring again means it just blocks line of sight regardless. They talked about that there may be different degrees of cover. So, -1 or -2. That's exactly what it said. I'm quoting, different degrees of cover. That's what Pete Foley said. And then they wanted to clean up some of this shit that we have to deal with about the fact that their rules are very 2D, but we play with 3-dimensional terrain. The verticality of the game, climbing levels, not being able to attack things that are like an inch above you because they're on a second level, the inability to charge things above you, and maybe there's going to be a fly change.
I hope there's a fly change.
Like how fly interacts with certain pieces of terrain specifically. So they clearly stated that they thought that a lot of these things were gamey and not intentional and ruined gameplay, and so they're trying to fix those kind of things. And to be honest, we've been talking about terrain needing fixed and needing better rules for a long time. And they've just been patching things, so the whole Smash Captain change, and then the fly change, and then different tournament formats ruling that you can charge and then you can't charge, and then if you can fit there, and then wobbly model, and it's really becoming stupid, right?
It can be a real mess.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think if they do a good job of this, simple, clear terrain rules, it could really change what's good. It could change like how you play. Like it could change things.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful for those changes.
They said that they're going to look at how terrain works with different types of units, charging through, moving around, going up and down. So that will be interesting. Maybe there will be changes in here for things like bikes and things like that. Who knows? Like, there could be a lot of things. If you did you play in 7th, Chris?
I played the very end of 7th.
Okay, so you might already remember that there was a lot of kind of stupid terrain rules, right? There was difficult terrain and dangerous terrain, and there was a lot of complex terrain rules in 7th. It was a bit too far the other way, but maybe they can bring a little bit of that back in just to stop abuse. Then that would be good. So we'll see. And they specifically say they recognize the fact that this is 3-dimensional game, but their rules have mostly been 2-dimensional to this point. So we'll see. Just as a TO, I am super excited for clear, concise terrain rules. I'm not that excited if there's going to be a lot of extra rules to know, or if people have to roll dice or have little markers or 50% of the people will be playing terrain rules and 50% of the people will just forget about it. I'm not excited about that, kind of like it is in AOS. But I am excited for clear, concise, this is this terrain, this is what it does. There's no arguments around that. I don't need to look up an FAQ if you can charge this guy, or like, I'm very excited about that because there's always 50% of the questions in the tournament are about terrain. And because everybody has their own kind of terrain, then they have to extrapolate rules and try and figure out what the rules are. And you got Ghost Arcs sitting on top of buildings, and then you got the ITC saying you can't put floating tanks on top of these things, and then you got Nova Ls, and like, it's all just all over the place, right? So I'm super excited if the terrain rules can be universal and nicely written, but we'll see. Okay, there was a couple of questions about blasts and hordes. They didn't really tell us much about it. They're going to have a list of weapons that are considered blasts, so we're talking probably like battle cannons on knights and stuff like that. And that these will have special benefits against units that have lots of models in it, or hordes. That's kind of all we know. There was a question about tanks, and obviously tanks are getting better. They'll be able to shoot somehow in combat or into combat or out of combat. We didn't really be very specific. And then they also went on to say that monsters are going to be better as a result, to have the same ability as tanks. And so we might see big Tyranid monsters back. I would like to see more Tyranid monsters. We'd like to see more Tyranid monsters, Chris. I think Tyranid monsters are cool.
Yeah, they're cool to look at, but they tend to suck.
They do tend to suck, and that's because they don't do anything, right? So, but they said monsters are going to be back, and that there will be benefits of shooting large horde units, and that future books will have then blast, as part of their weapon type, probably. Okay. Missions, okay. So missions was one of the big parts of the announcement on the weekend. They got Mike Brandt on, who is the guy who runs Nova, obviously, and Nova uses its own missions. And he said basically him and GW have been working on a kind of, supposedly they want it to be a pretty universal mission format that everybody plays, to get rid of the ITC, ETC, WTC, Nova, Adepticon, like the whole mission format thing. It would be cool if everybody played the same missions, and sure, that would be cool. And so he's been working on it. And then instantly in the ITC TOs chat, there was a thread started because everybody was like, oh my god, ITC's dying. And so Reese had to put a post up saying ITC's not dying, Mike Brandt is not trying to stab us. We've all been working together for a long time on these missions. So it sounds like the ITC missions will probably disappear. And they're all in bed with GW, right? So they're going to all be doing this universal mission format. But the ITC will still exist as a ranking system and points and stuff like that, which is fine. So what do you think? And these missions are supposed to be the best ever missions they've ever seen.
Best ever missions.
Best ever missions they've ever seen. And they're super excited about it. And they think everybody is going to be playing these missions and loving it. And that there's going to be different missions for the different ways to play. But we'll come. That's the next question. So what do you think about new missions?
So I know we keep going back to AOS, but in AOS, the most tournaments, they just use the
General's Handbook.
Yeah, the General's Handbook. The core rulebook, and maybe one of the expansions they put out as the core missions. If I'm going to be hopeful and say that I'm guessing, that the Games Workshop is going to take a cue from AOS and bring those style of missions into 40K.
Yeah, I think it would be cool if we played similar missions, and that we didn't have this whole Euro-American thing, and that, if you're competitive, you play ITC, but if you're casual, you play Rulebook. That's such an arbitrary thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, so it would be cool if they came up with some robust missions, and they're like, here's your missions. Everybody play this. And Nova, Adepticon, all the big tournaments started running these missions and that they were good, that would be fine. I mean, I'd be fine playing those missions if they were good. And so I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for that.
Yeah, very hopeful for the new missions.
There's a big conversation on the chat right now about the app and like USRs and stuff like that. We won't talk about the app tonight because it doesn't specifically affect Custodes, but super excited about the app.
Oh, yeah.
I think we were just talking last week that, they're never going to do the app. It's so stupid. Never going to do the app. And then boom, we're doing an app and it's going to be good. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. There's no reason why they couldn't do the app. So potentially could be the best part of 9th edition is this freaking app. Okay. Okay, so they kept on saying there's just 3 ways to play, of course. They're no longer, I think they changed the name from matched and narrative or whatever, anyway. And that there's going to be different missions for the different types of ways to play, and anyway, blah, blah, blah. There's going to be missions for different sizes of armies, and so trying to really tune it to however you want to play, there's going to be like a different mission set for you. So that should be interesting to see. We're not going to talk too much about Crusade tonight. It really does seem more of a narrative thing or a way of playing a campaign where your guys change over time. And I don't really see that happening. Although it may be cool to run like a campaign, like a Crusade event over 2 days where people play six games that are part of like a mission and they go from like beginning to the end. That might be cool to run. But I don't think competitive play is going to be in where the Crusade is. And I don't think that's their intention. So we won't talk too much about Crusade tonight. But it would be cool as a Custodes army. They mentioned that Crusade might be a combination of like narrative with like escalation. So you start with like a 500-point army, and then you slowly build up your army size over time. So it would be cool as Custodes, since you have so few models, that they got like super buff or like leveled up. Like that would be kind of cool. So we might have to try that. Cool. Might have to try that. It's like, here's my starting 10 guys, but now they're like super strong. You could give them all names and everything. Yeah, Custodes names. Okay, somebody asked if random shots on weapons is still a thing, and random shots on weapons is still a thing. Yes.
Random damage is still a thing.
Well, nobody asked them that specifically, but probably it's still a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, next there was a bunch of questions about Marines. Who cares about Marines? They're going to get new Codex probably as one of the first ones. Them and Necrons, obviously, because they're going to be in the starter set. And then apparently Deathwatch is going to be one of the earliest codexes, probably them and Harlequins and all the guys who didn't get a PA. And that you can still use the old Marines, and the new chainswords are going to be better. What that means, nobody knows. Maybe extra AP, maybe 4 damage chainswords, who knows? Maybe extra 2 attacks. I don't know. Maybe they can reach 3 inches. I don't know. Like, there's so many ways you could buff a chainsword.
I think it's probably just going to be like an extra AP, and that's probably going to be it.
Okay, which kind of they can already get.
Yeah, through the Assault Doctrine, but
yeah,
it's pretty dumb.
Yeah, and we'll get to modifiers in a second. Yeah. But, okay. Somebody asked about new big characters, and obviously the Silent King is coming out. But Pete Foley hinted that there will be other large, big, new characters coming, but they didn't tell anybody anything else. So, okay, fine, whatever. Forge World. So this is really something that concerns us Custodes players. So, as people know, the GW team is taking over writing Forge World rules for 40k, not for 30k or whatever, and that they're rewriting everything, and probably, hopefully, squatting or legending a bunch of stuff. And so a lot of the Forge World units weren't in the original Legends because they're probably going to be legended now. But they're going to... And apparently these books are coming out soon after the release of 9th. A whole swath of books covering the Forge World units for 40k. And so they mentioned specifically things like Death Core, stuff like that. But obviously half of our army is in Forge World. And they're trying to basically integrate Forge World and GW into the same ecosystem, just that some models are made by GW and some are made by Forge World, which would be excellent. Because people don't like Forge World because, other than the cost, money-wise, they don't like it because the rules were so shit, right?
Yeah, or they end up being overpowered and everybody uses them.
That's right. And they see at first they were kind of immune to the whole adjustment cycle, and then they started to adjust them. So I think this is only good, especially for us, since a lot of our powerful units are in Forge World. If we can have a book that includes all of our units that we can use, and especially if our future Codex in 9th unifies all of these in a single book, that would be great. And then hopefully we're going to start to see, since tournament formats might be start coming more universal, we're going to see this no Forge World sort of shit that still goes around in some places. So hopefully the whole Forge World thing will die, and then it will just be like models from a different company, but with the same rules. What would you like to see from a Forge World rewrite? That's a big question. Oh my god, that's a big question. That's like a whole episode on itself.
Yeah, that could be a whole episode on its own. Honestly, the biggest thing that I would want is the ability for like Sagittariums to be good, like actually good, and not just like okay shooting, but like I want it to be actually be good, so we can have like ranged, Custodes.
So that's your darling, the Sagittarium.
Yeah, I like Sagittarium, but they're not good.
Well, I want to see two things. I want to see our rules interact with Forge World units. So most of our Codex rules were written without vehicles in mind, because we have like no vehicles except for like freaking Land Raider. So I'd like to see that we have rules that interact with the Forge World as if they were actually part of our army. And then I want to see the Telemon.
Oh, yeah.
I need the Telemon to come back.
I just want my Telemon to be good.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby.
Like,
let's go Telemon.
It's so close to being there. It's so close.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really care if like our big flyers or whatever, like they're such niche models, but like really nice to have like a good Telemon again. But anyways, this is pie in the sky. Who knows? But it's good news that I was thinking that was going to take them like a year to write those books, but it sounds like maybe they've been on it for a while and it's going to come out soon with 9th. So I think that's good, and they really need to legend all the Forge World shit that have rules but no models. They need to get rid of all of that shit. All those stupid, all those stupid Space Marine characters. Like they need to get rid of all those stupid things. So yeah. Okay. Vigilus books will carry over. Yes. So they clarified there will be new codexes coming out for 9th, but until then, you can use all the stuff that you have up to now. It's been written with 9th in mind. And when your new book comes out, it's going to take all the good stuff from all those previous books and combine it, and you may lose some shit. But eventually, you're going to get a new book. So, and we don't know when anybody's book is, but obviously Necron Space Marine is going to be first. So don't worry, guys. You can use all your stuff, your Vigilus, your White Dwarf supplements. Everything can be used, and you'll be fine. And, everybody got a book basically in the last, 9 months. So everybody's fairly recent. Nobody's been waiting 3 years for a book like they used to do, before 8th edition.
Our book came out, 2018? We've been waiting for a while for a new book.
Yeah, but we're going to have a new book before 9th launches, right? So by the time 9th launches, everybody will have gotten a new book within the year. Versus in the old days when, Drukhari didn't have a book for 5 years or whatever, right? So,
Jeez.
Yeah.
So
they've been releasing the PAs like crazy, and so now within the last 9 months, everybody has a new book. So that's cool. I think everybody starting on a relatively similar footing. Okay. Yeah, but there would be no indexes, none of this stuff like there was before. In fact, indexes are probably going to get squatted.
I hope so.
They already have, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently everybody auto hits on 6s now.
Yeah, that's an interesting change.
Yeah. It was a little bit to do with modifiers, and we're going to talk about it in a second, but just in general, do you think this is good or bad for us? I don't think it really matters.
We would have to be, -5 to hit to even get to a miss?
I think for most people it doesn't matter. It's going to add a few extra hits here and there. but there are a lot, and most of the time 6s hits anyway. So, I don't think overall it's going to be a huge thing. I don't think it specifically affects Custodes too much. So yeah. Crusades, we're not going to talk about Crusade. Okay, so then they talk...
Actually, that's not even necessarily true. Because against some matchups with the Vexilla and a Flyer, you could never get hit by
Guardsmen.
Or by, I think, Tyranids, some Tyranids.
Yeah. Okay. It might matter in some very specific matchups in specific situations. Yeah. Sean Stryker asked, when do we think it's going to come out? Dan told me probably July, but he doesn't have any firm dates yet, but it's probably July, like mid-July. So if you think, AdMech is out next week, basically like beginning of June, then us 2 weeks later, and then Pariah 4 weeks later, and then 2 weeks after that, 9th edition. So I think that's what we're looking at now. Every 2 weeks, boom. They've already been teasing Pariah even without teasing our, like it's like an accelerated thing. So most of the editions have come out in June, in the past editions, because usually like a couple of months before CCBB, which really fucks us up. But so it's late, but not too late because they've squeezed everything together. So yeah. All right. So then there was a question about Eldar Flyers. Somebody who's still butthurt about Eldar Flyers, which was like, I don't know, 6 months ago. But anyway, so they have taken into account all the modifier stacking, and they said there will be caps to modifiers of +1 or -1, depending on the situation. So that's obviously good for everybody, except for Eldar Flyers. But also bad, right? So our Flyers can't be -2 anymore, or -3 or whatever. So it's good and bad, and I think it's actually probably better for the game in general.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think I don't think modifiers should ever go past -1 or +1. It's,
Yeah, and it doesn't decrease the efficacy or the usefulness of the Vexilla. And so
yeah,
I
mean, -1 to hit's always going to be good.
Yeah, I don't really have. I think it's only good, and it doesn't affect us too severely. And in fact, yeah, if I can now use my Claytus tank and shoot down Flyers with only -1 to hit, they're going down. They're going down. So I think it's only benefits us to not stack, because we're already pretty good at mitigating minus to hit modifiers. But once you get up to like -3, like that can become stupid. Like even for us, it's hard to hit. So it's only good that it's going to be limited to like -1. And to be honest, it's mostly Eldar and maybe some Chaos that really kind of stacks those minus to hit modifiers. It's really annoying. Okay, aircraft. So another of the big changes was aircraft. So one of the things that they pointed out that people hated about aircraft was that how it interacts with ground units. First of all, the fact that you can block ground units from moving with the base of an aircraft is kind of stupid. The fact that your like the whole kind of aircraft flyer thing was kind of bad. Again, it goes back to like 3D game, 2D rules, and I'm glad to see. I don't know if I'm glad to see, but now apparently, so aircraft will be able to fly off and then come back on, just like they did in 7th. Hopefully, they don't bring back some of these stupid aircraft rules that they had at the end of 7th, where you have to like fly in a formation and then you get special rules and all those stupid shit. What was that called again? Like something,
I don't remember.
Something in the skies or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my god, that was like possibly the worst rules ever, and everybody just instantly ignored it. But so it looks like they'll be able to fly off the table and then come back on probably the turn after. So whatever. I hope they get rid of Vector Dancer then. Because actually for us ground-based armies, that gives us a bit of respite, right? Like a turn of Flyers not being there. And it'll be interesting to see how they do the rules, because these models still need bases. So how are they going to do the rules about models moving through aircraft bases? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'd imagine it'd be something similar to just put your base on top of the Flyers base.
Oh, people are not going to like that. Don't put your model on top of my scenic base. Not going to like that. So yeah, I don't know how they're going to do that, because the Flyers still need bases, and they're large. So.
Oh yeah.
How are you gonna do that? I don't know. We'll see. But I think these are good changes for aircrafts. Yeah. Okay, morale phase. Something that doesn't affect us too often, actually. When it does, it really hurts. Because we're not leadership 10 for some reason. We can fail morale. When it does affect us, it hurts. But it's not often that it affects us because we have small units, and if we lose that many units, we're usually dead. But it may affect us now, so morale has changed. It's not changed, but it's going to be more of a thing now. Really, morale right now is like you either lose everybody or nothing happens. So they're making it interact with more things. Armies that have morale abilities are going to be a bit more effective. And they brought in something called combat attrition, which sounds like it might not be good for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I like this change or not. Because on one hand, like other melee armies are now, weaker, are easier to deal with if they have stuff like combat attrition. But on the other hand, now we have to deal with it.
Like if I get attritioned one dude, and the opponent gets attritioned like 3 dudes out of their 30, and I lose 1 dude out of my 5, that's a big deal. So I hope it's like proportionate somehow, or maybe still leadership based, so that our okay leadership, I don't want to see us suffering the proportionately more attrition than large horde units, right?
Yeah, or they might just end up giving us a rule to ignore these dumb rules. Because let's be honest, if they wanted to, they probably could make Custodes a little bit more lore friendly and just have us ignore attrition and
just
I forgot what's called morale phase altogether.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see. I'm a little bit nervous about what attrition is going to be, but we'll see. Maybe if it's like morale, it doesn't really affect us very rarely, then no big deal, whatever. And if it only works in our favor in every other circumstance, then it'll be a good thing. So it would be nice, because we have few models, but we throw out so many attacks. If we don't get through the whole unit, it's not such a binary, you fail morale or you don't, you still lose some models. That would be nice. Okay, I wonder if they're going to do something similar to AOS, where if your unit is split in the morale phase, half of it dies. You think they're going to do that as a form of attrition?
I'm not sure. Because
right now,
that would be a huge change,
happen, right?
Yeah,
yeah, it's a big change.
That would be a huge change. I don't think they will do that, but it's possible.
Okay, legends, yeah. So they talked that more things will be legended over time, unfortunately. So you can just wait for your unit to get legended. Okay, CP.
Oh yeah, the biggest thing they announced.
So one of the things that's changing is how you get CP. So obviously right now it's based on detachments. So a lot of armies have to bring battalions just to get enough CP to do all the new shit. And us as an army, and we're talking pure Custodes now, have to have 8 or 9 max, unless you play double battalion, which sucks the ass. So, and that sucked. And fine, we don't have that many stratagems to use right now, but presumably we're about to get 2 or 3 more pages, and so it really sucks that we cannot get CP. And they really specifically every time have called out, even had a picture and a video of Custodes standing by a pot of CP as the poster boy of this problem. And so they've changed it. We don't have these specific rules, but now CP is linked to the size of game or mission. And so each player will start with the same amount of CP.
That's a very welcome change.
I know that people are throwing around the number of 20. I don't know where that number comes from. I've never seen that number in an official GW capacity. But whatever the number...
So the rumor that I heard was that it's going to be 5 CP for every 500 points.
Okay.
So that's where the 20 CP comes from. and then I'd imagine you're gonna spend probably that same ratio to soup and things. So if you want to bring in 500 points of like AdMech, then you spend 5 CP to get those 500 points.
Okay. So they did mention that there's going to be a name for games of 500, 4,000, 1,500, like 4 levels of games. And so,
Yeah.
so you're probably talking a certain number of CP depending on those 4 levels. So I guess 20 CP, like 20, fuck, I don't know what to do with 20 CP. We're just tangle foot everybody
CP.
all the time.
I mean, if we get 10 stratagems, about half of them are going to be Resistance to Silence. 5 new stratagems could be huge, like 3d6 charge, or you could Victor the Blood Games, every character you have.
Yeah.
Or Alaris are actually good now because you can snipe characters every single turn. You can you could unleash the lion when like you gotta tag multiple units. You can like +1 the wound on spears. Like now we're talking like a lot of stratagems that used to be somewhat situational. Like now you can use them like all the time and never have to worry about like running out of CP.
Yeah, exactly. The sniper stratagem for Alaris, that's like 2 CP. I'm like, really don't want to use that. But now I'm going to be using it all the time. Like, beware characters, right?
Yeah.
Like, that instantly has made those things better. Stooping dive, right? 3 CP, but I also need to homer. I also need to do that. I can only get D3 back. Oh, I can't do it. Stoop away.
And with 20 CP, you could even homer in 2 units.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So, yeah, this is really good. The other thing is sometimes the mission will tell you how many CP, so you could there may be a mission where the theme is that you have less CP. I don't know. And then, so somebody mentioned, so are troops like worth nothing now? And, well, troops are worth what they do as models.
I mean, Storm Shields are always going to be good.
Yeah. Like, our troops are still good. Most troops are the only models for a particular faction that have OBSEC, so there's still that. We're not. Everybody is OBSEC, but so still good for that. But yeah, you're not going to see loyal 32s with random armies now just for 5 CP. That is gone, thank God. And so that's going to be good. You're now going to have to spend CP to take certain detachments or to take soup, which is great. I think a game with less soup would be much better. Eldar soup, Chaos soup, Imperial soup. I want to see all those things you have to spend something to get that, and that's what's kind of coming up. And so the detachments maybe then become less important. You could run, as I said, you could run a whole Death Wing army for Dark Angels and still have the same amount of CP. So I think this will be a really, really big change to how people make their armies and what armies can do. Like, huge. I can't even describe. Yeah. Not just for us. Obviously, it's going to be huge for us, but for everybody. There's a lot of armies out there that play the list they play because they need 15 CP to start the game.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. And also, as a Custodes player, I love that they specifically recognize that our army is really bad in this aspect of the game. But I think if we can have CP and have the ability to not have to spend 700 points on a battalion of Guardians just to get our minimum CP, it's going to be so liberating.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine 700 points, another hammer unit, just 3 Caladius tanks, like even 3 bike captains and like an extra Guardian or whatever? Oh, that's so good. So excited for this. Yeah.
If you're watching the stream, you can see little thought bubbles, clouds coming up beside our heads right now. I think like that CP change makes all our units better, but it makes bikes. Like, without even knowing if we have any new stratagems or rules, it instantly makes bikes better because of stooping dive. People have not seen that for a long time, but to be able to just stoop and homer in them as well as another unit, I think that instantly makes them better. Or the Punchy Telemon. Right? Like, you don't want to spend 3 CP homering in a Punchy Telemon, but now you can.
Now, would that be good? We'll see with the protocol changes, but
yeah. Oh man. Okay. Well, we could probably talk all night about all the crazy things we think we will be able to do with 20 CP, but we'll move on. Power level will still exist, but they recognize that they need to update them more regularly, so that's fine. Mortal wounds are unchanged, people. I don't know what people were expecting to be changed about mortal wounds, but unchanged. Soup, as they already mentioned, you will need to pay CP to soup, so that's good. And 20 CP, just to go back to that, instantly makes taking assassins and inquisitors better. Because they are useful, but at a cost of whatever points and CP, it's kind of steep.
Yeah, on top of all the stratagems that they have access to that you're probably never going to use because you don't have the CP to do it.
Exactly. So I think we'll talk more about it next week, but inquisitors have instantly skyrocketed up in value for our army. If you're dirty and you want to take an inquisitor, Chris, but
hey.
now you have the CP to buy them and to use the strats and the warlord traits and all that shit, and so that's good.
Yeah.
There's still a points cost, but okay, future codexes. Yeah, we already talked about that. Okay, so that is it. What do you think? Are you excited or not, Chris? Now that I've stoked it up for you to 400%.
I am really excited, but I still gotta keep a level head. I got really excited for Valerian, Alea, for our Psychic Awakening coming out 6 months ago. That's what I hoped would have happened. But it's okay. All this news is it's giving me a lot of hope that our army will be more competitive once our book comes out.
Yeah. I think our two things are happening very close together. So there's going to be a washout period of at least a few months before we figure out both a new book and then shortly after a new edition. But there's going to be and then a new Forge World book. It's going to be basically 3 releases, probably quite close together, that we're going to have to cogitate. And I think everything is going to be on the table. I think you have to throw out all that you thought you knew before, and we're going to have to restart Custodes Tactica right back to the beginning and just go through everything and play everything and give everything a chance. Because I think there may be lots of things. There obviously is going to be a lot of changes. Some people in the chat thinking 20 CP is a lot. It may be that you have to run a battalion, but if you don't want to run a battalion, now you got to pay a CP. Could be that. So now before you're down to 17.
Yeah, I'd imagine that for every detachment you have that's not a battalion, you're gonna pay CP for, or if you want to bring in extra elites in a vanguard or something that you normally can't allow in a regular detachment, that's probably gonna cost CP.
Yeah. And there's all the new books generally have ways of giving lots of extra relics, extra warlord traits, war gear. Some people are spending 6-7 CP before the even game starts right now. So now you're down to 13, and then you have the option of deep striking half your army, and probably they already said lots more things you'll be able to put in reserve. So now you're spending another 3 or 4 CP. And so you're probably going to end up with the same amount of CP to start the game if you go with all these bonuses and stuff that you probably can buy. So
yeah.
And they already said there's going to be a new core stratagem for falling back, and so there may be a bunch of new core stratagems other than interrupt and CP reroll, and so now you need CP to send those. And then we don't know what's in the new books too. There may be more CP intensive stuff to do. So I think while it seems like a lot of CP, it may not end up being that much CP. I'm thinking for us, it will be way more CP than we're used to. I'm used to playing with 4 CP in the past. But eventually, probably, we're going to have a bunch of shit where we want to use those CP on and still feel tight.
Yeah, even with my current list, I still start with 4 CP after spending everything.
Yeah. So I think it's a super exciting time, and I'm super stoked. Okay. On the chat, if you got questions, please post. Let us know. We'll answer them as we go. Do consider joining the... Oh, I can't point to the Custodes Discord now because it goes over onto Chris's screen. But there's a link down there for the Custodes Discord. Join it. There it is. The link has been updated. And this is really hard to do. And do check us out and join us. And ask your questions there. I'm going to go to the Discord channel now and go to the questions. All right, questions. Okay, question number 1. What unit in our codex will be the big winner? Oh, it's hard. I don't know how we can possibly answer that question now. Like right now, on speculation without RPA, I think Alaris got a lot better.
Yeah.
My Alaris concept just got a lot better. If nothing changes, if we don't get a book, we just go into 9th with 20 CP. Now all the shenanigans get good. Because there's an inordinate number of stratagems written just for those dudes for some reason. It's like they really want us to use them or something. But yeah, bikes get better as we already talked about. Otherwise, it's hard to answer that question without knowing what's in the book too. But potentially lots of things get better, which is what's exciting.
I actually think Guardians might be probably the second winner. Because if you're running Guardians, like before, if you wanted to run Guardians, you take a battalion and you have like a unit of like 8 or 9 with like 7 spears or something like that. And you would just use the +1 to wound like all the time. Now you don't have to take a battalion to do that.
Yeah, just take a unit.
Yeah.
One unit. Yeah. So I used to throw around these ideas of running just a patrol, 3 CP list patrol, because I only really wanted the 1 unit of Guardians, the bomb unit, right, or the hammer unit. I didn't want all the little stupid other shit, but you needed it for CP. And I was like, and at the time I was going through this. Well, I don't need the battalion, right? That was that whole phase of I don't need the battalion, I don't need CP. And so why don't I go with patrol? Because I just want that 1 unit of Guardians. +1 to wound is nice. You know, lots of storm shields is a nice unit. A lot of models for wrapping and stuff. So that definitely is a higher potential now that we don't need the battalion. We also don't need 2 HQs anymore if we're not running battalions.
That's also true.
We might not even need Trajan anymore if we don't need his moment shackle. Is that heresy? I don't know.
I don't know. Trajan's really good, but
he's good. But is he 185 points good if we don't need him for CP? I don't know.
I mean, maybe with the Psychic Awakening stuff we get, but if we can come up with like some like perfect list, I can imagine Trajan just like no longer being an auto include.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially if we have other rules that make up for what he does, which is basically just reroll 1s to wound and recycle CP. But yeah.
Oh my god, we can actually use this moment shackle for other things now.
Maybe
instead of just always CP.
Yeah, self heal or attack twice. I mean, fight again. Basically, it's free, so that gives him 10 attacks. That's like half of Ragnar. So
that is half of Ragnar.
If there's a strat that give him straight 2 or straight 3 damage, 10 attacks, that guy's mowing through some shit. Strength 10, right? Strength 10 -3, like 2 damage, 3 damage, 10 attacks. That guy is killing some shit now, much more reliably, hitting on 2s, auto hitting basically. So that now makes Trajan super auto include, right? So who knows?
Auto include as like a smash captain. That could be interesting.
Basically, would you not take him if he did 10 attacks, strength 10, auto hitting, -3, straight 3 damage?
Straight 3 damage.
That's basically a dead knight right there. One dude.
Yeah, that would be a dead knight. Definitely take Trajan to kill knights.
That's like a whole bunch of dead centurions. That's like.
Or you're not killing centurions.
Oh, because you're transhuman. Fucking
transhuman.
Okay, so you broke my dream there, but still, so I think there could be a lot of things could change. So it's hard to know. That's a really good question that we cannot really answer very well. Does the hype train have brakes? Not right now. Hype train has no brakes.
Yep, keeps on rolling.
If we can have a unit come onto any side of the board, like outflanking, I guess, what extra utility do you see us having? That's a good question. So like my Alaris concept, for example, deep striking in like 3 or 4 guys as a surgical unit, if that can come in from anywhere, I mean the 9-inch thing is still you can still screen that, right? 9 inches. But there's some utility there. It's hard to know without looking at missions and stuff like that. And then, but I think any tactical flexibility like that is good. What do you think? Can you think of any specific situations?
I think Venatari will be really huge if we could like flank them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it would be interesting if the rules for outflanking are exactly the same as deep striking, basically. Then there will be some added utility in some circumstances, but often it will end up just being the same thing. Or if you have the flexibility when they come on of deciding if they just deep strike or if they outflank, that would be nice. But if you have to decide that when you put them into reserve, then like there's a lot of ways it could be good and a lot of ways it could be bad.
I mean, if flanking is literally just going to be, come to the side of the board, I'd rather just deep strike.
Yeah.
And just put them wherever I want.
Exactly.
But if they can come in on turn 1, like from the side of the board, that could be really good.
Yeah, or if they can come in later, like turn 4.
Yeah.
Like if there's differences between outflanking and deep striking, other than because in effect it's often the same thing, then or maybe if you outflank you can then move, or like so if there's differences in those two ways of coming on, then I think it's going to be big. Yeah. Okay, next question. Will the new cover mechanics be our saving grace? Well, we don't know what the new cover mechanics are. Pete Foley mentioned that there will be degrees of cover. I don't know what that means, whether it's going to be +1 save, then +2 save, and I don't know. Obviously, anything that makes us harder to kill is only going to be good for our army. So, I don't know. It's hard to answer that without knowing what the cover rules are going to be like.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. I feel like if we get like some defensive buffs, like ignoring AP1 or ignoring AP1 and 2, or I feel like the cover's not going to be too much of an issue. Because at that point we're on a 2-up save, and then any amount of AP puts us on our invuln.
Yeah.
So like, what will cover matter at that point? Like aside from just blocking line of sight.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually that brought up a thing. So AdMech got a rule that reduces AP by 1. So -3 AP weapon becomes -2 AP. Versus the rules we have seen, like Sisters and stuff, ignore AP1 or AP2. I think inherently reducing AP is actually better, because now your las cannons are -2, melta guns are -3, better than just ignoring AP1 and 2, because at AP1 it's the same thing, basically. In effect, the rule is the same thing. But how that interacts with cover is slightly different too. But then when you're already on a 2-up save, maybe it doesn't make that much of a difference. But I think that's an interesting thing that they gave AdMech, which is slightly different. Reducing AP as opposed to just ignoring AP. I think I'll be happy with either of those two, but, yeah. Custom traits for Custodes Brotherhoods. Yes, well, we think we're going to get, tides or something. I think that'll be a fairly reasonable expectation, but we don't know. Israel Rodriguez, you're super new to the game and think about making a Loyal 32 or a 17 model Scion Battalion. Yeah, I would wait. Because first of all, you're probably going to have to pay CP to take those guys, which then may not be worth it unless you feel like they're going to add a lot of value to what you're trying to do. And sure, 30 guardsmen may add value to holding objectives and stuff, but it may not be worth the points and the CP expenditure now. And now you don't need them for CP. So...
And we have Sisters of Silence do that for us now, which have better saves than guardsmen.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so I think I would not buy 32 guardsmen right now or 17 scions. I would just wait. I would just wait.
I would recommend more custodian guards if you're gonna buy more things.
Yeah.
You can never have enough of those.
All right, that is all the questions on the Discord. Okay, so super exciting, and I'm like, I wanted to make like a gif of like hype train with like my face on it or something. I'm super excited. Yeah.
Really?
I think you've calmed me down a little bit though, Chris, because you're so level, whereas I'm a bit manic. So, good combination.
I know that I want Custodes to be good, and I want them to have like so many rules, but I also know that's not gonna happen. That they're probably never gonna give us -1 to wound, as much as I want that.
But there's so many ways they could.
I know, right?
Stratagem, relic, a banner, a warlord trait. I mean, army rule. I mean, there's so many ways, like a tide. Like, there's so many ways that they could do that, right?
Yeah,
like, it's tantalizing.
But I know they're not.
Yeah.
I know they're not going to do that.
Or maybe like a cooler transhuman. Yeah, somebody said on the chat, right? Because we're already transhuman. We're more transhuman than the transhumans. We need like a better transhuman. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me, Chris. As always, good to chat with you. Thanks everybody on the chat and on the stream for watching and for joining us at this quite speculative pie in the sky look at 9th edition stuff. And next week we will see. The plan is to do Inquisition, but we will see what comes out. And tomorrow night, do join us for the return of the podcast. Me and Chris will be here live talking about 9th edition as it applies to everything else other than Custodes. So we will have a great chat about it tomorrow night. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching, and see you next time.